Alrighty, hello everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Skating Penguin Network Mailbag. I am Garrett Bahana. Robbie is out for this edition of the Mailbag, so that means I am stuck begrudgingly with the coattail rider, the third stringer, Snail. He is here. I am here. Snail has let me out of his basement, and we will get to some basement dwelling conversations here in this mailbag because I'll save that conversation for when we get to it. But we have more questions to answer from our loyal listeners here at the Skating Penguin Network, and that's exactly what we are going to do. We're just going to rotate Snail and I, since it's just us two. Well, we can have a bit of a looser conversation and go back and forth. But Snail, you'll get question one. I'll take question two, and I guess we can rotate from there. Question one for you comes from Brian. How are we feeling about the Stadium Series jerseys? All four, in my opinion, are just awful, Brian says.
I share that sentiment.
Agreed.
They just Garrett, don't they just seem like lazy?
Lazy, uninspired, bland. All three adjectives go perfect to describe the modern day NHL under Gary Bettman and everyone else.
I agree, and that's a larger conversation. But regarding the Stadium Series jerseys, my first thought when I saw them posted was it reminded me of like a video game generated jersey. Like if you were playing EA Sports NHL or something and you created a team on on whatever mode, it looks like a just shitty little logo that the AI in EA Sports would generate for you. They're really unimaginative. I heard an argument that they made some of them the colors they are and the size of the logos because they're all pretty big logos so that you could see the logos from far away at the stadiums. But I don't really buy that. I would think it's far more the latter of like it's the NHL just being lazy. Like the color schemes are just lazy. The logos are lazy. Like the New York Rangers one just says NYR in like massive letters. Um, I don't like any of them, and especially when the Penguins had some pretty bad ones too. Do you remember the Penguins
Yes.
stadium? I just remember Jack Johnson in them. I was like, oh, I hate everything about these.
They had an I believe when they played Philadelphia, they had that was when they played was that when they used the all black, like it was a black jersey, black pants, or am I mistaking that? Because I know they also had the yellow, like the big bright yellow stadium. Those were awful. I thought those were the worst.
The yellow ones looked like a basketball jersey, and then they had
Yes.
black sleeves. And I just remember
Yes.
Jack Johnson was getting having a rough game that. Anyways, but yeah, those were the jerseys. Was the yellow like basketball jersey with like the black sleeves?
It was so ugly. I pulled them up. I'm looking at them side by side right now. The Flyers, Devils, and Islanders.
Dude, the Islanders one.
I mean, all four of them are very generic. Like, I will say, I like the color scheme on the Rangers one. I like the way that they incorporated the red, white, and blue. You do, like you say, you do notice like the inflated jersey logos on the chest there. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's why they blew the logos up to see them better in an arena setting like that. But still, I mean, it's just like the Islanders, for instance, literally just says Isles on like an orange blob, and then the rest of the jersey is like navy blue. The Devils is literally just their logo enlarged, painted black on a red jersey, and the Flyers looks like a regular away jersey.
It
Like,
does.
it's just it just looks awful. It looks horrendous.
It is. It looks cheap, honestly. And
Yes, cheap is a good way.
the Isles one, have they outdone themselves for like a worse jersey than their old like fisherman logo jerseys?
I see a lot of people online. You're either in the camp of you love the fisherman jersey because it's so bad, or you absolutely despise the fisherman jersey also because it's so bad. So I like the fisherman jerseys I'm indifferent towards. I really don't care one way or the other about the fisherman jerseys, but yeah, it, it's not a good look. They are very uninspiring, very bland.
And I don't think we're not just some like haters either. Like I think the consensus online is that they're kind of they're a soft and kind of weird lazy
Yes,
jersey.
I've seen a lot of the similar sentiment, and not that I'm like trying to get on the bandwagon here, but I've seen a lot of similar sentiment in hockey circles online on Twitter and whatnot about these jerseys being so bland and boring.
Yep, Brian, you're not the only one. Garrett, question number 2 from Brian as well. He asks, who is the most versatile player in Penguins history? We were having a chat about this before we hopped on.
We were, and we were trying to figure out whether Brian mentioned like in terms of position versatility or a player that could play on the first line but also play on the fourth line in the same game kind of thing. So I am a younger Penguins fan, obviously. Snail is about 6 years older than me, but still, we're both on the younger side of Penguins fans. The first name that came to mind for me, again, this is, I guess you could call this recency bias because I'm pretty young. First name that came to mind for me was Pascal Dupuis. And Snail said when we were having the discussion before we hit record, that was one of the names that popped into his mind. So Snail also brought up Patrick Hornquist. Like, I think those are two really good, especially recent, but really good examples. Like Dupuis ended up being that throw in the Thrashers trade, but somehow, some way, he found his way onto Sidney Crosby's line. And like you think, you look at a guy like Dupuis, who at that point in his career, when he was traded to the Penguins, he had been around the block a few times. Like he was certainly a veteran. You think he's just going to be your average Joe bottom sixer, but he ends up finding chemistry with Sidney Crosby and Chris Kunitz, and that's one of the more fondly remembered lines of that era of Penguins hockey, at least in my opinion. So versatile, you could for me and for Snail, I guess Snail, if you want to add anything else, but I'll say Hornquist and Pascal Dupuis were my two picks for versatility for the Penguins.
Nope, mine as well.
Alrighty, with that, we will go back to question 3. Now, this question is specifically for you, Snail. Brian is here. What are your thoughts on the concoction known as the Seattle Dog? Snail, have you ever had one, and is it as good as it looks?
It's delicious. I actually made them probably like a month ago, maybe like a month and a half ago. Got the hot dogs going, got a little cream cheese on the hot dog, throw a couple jalapeno slices on there. Basically, what it is you're just adding a little slab of cream cheese on your hot dog bun. And for some reason, I don't know why, but Seattle, our thing is like putting cream cheese on things. We have the Seattle roll at sushi places where they put cream cheese inside the sushi roll with a piece of salmon, seared salmon. And then we got the Seattle dogs, which are like the cream cheese on the hot dog with whatever condiments, whatever traditional condiments you want to throw on there. But I also have found, oddly, the cream cheese, there's also like a jalapeno round added to these things. Like the sushi also has jalapeno. The Seattle sushi roll has jalapeno in it. The hot dogs, there's always little jalapeno rings out there to add to them. So I like them. I think they're great, vegan or not. I will definitely have myself one from time to time. I guess I'd be curious. What I'm a little biased because it's a thing around here. I'd be curious. Does that sound obscene to a guy like you, Garrett, out in Pittsburgh?
No, I googled a picture of this. The thing that turns me off are the jalapenos, but everything else I could absolutely jive with. Absolutely, I like cream cheese. I really like cream cheese. Like I don't know, Snail, if you like bagels, but like every like 5 or 6 months, I feel like I rediscover my love for bagels after not having them for so long. I just lather those things with Philadelphia cream cheese, and I just go to town for like a good week and a half, 2 weeks. I eat nothing but bagels.
That's
So
hilarious. I do the same thing.
yeah, I so me you like the what do they call it up there? Seattleites? What's a native of Seattle?
Seattleites.
Satellites. How about that? Just
Yes.
abbreviate. But but yeah, I would slather cream cheese on just about anything I could get my hands on. But yeah, I don't. I think people think that Permani sandwiches here are grotesque and disgusting for putting coleslaw and French fries on them. But I'm looking at the Seattle Dog on Google Images right now, and I could absolutely house like 3 or 4 of them in a row.
Oh yeah, and like I guess it's just a matter of like, especially like to you, Brian, out there, like if you like cream cheese and if you like a toasted bagel and if you like hot dogs, I mean, dude, cream cheese will go pair pretty well with just about anything.
For sure.
All right, Garrett, question number 4 from you coming from Brian yet again. And he asks, now that we are at the All-Star break, and this is where Dubas said he'd assess where we're at and act accordingly, what is it that you think he'll do?
When they blew those games out west, I put in our Skating Penguin Network group chat between the three of us that I was ready to trade Gensel. I was ready to blow this whole thing up. I was ready to just yeet myself out of my bedroom window and onto the cement below. I think since then I've kind of stepped back from the ledge a little bit. I'm still not convinced that this is a good hockey team. I think that they're going to be on the bubble for the remainder of the season, which probably isn't the answer that Kyle Dubas was hoping for. But I mean, you want to set this arbitrary deadline of the All-Star break to gauge where your team is, and they still remain on the outside looking in on that bubble. They do have games in hand on the Flyers, I think. So if they're going to catch one team in particular, it probably will be the Flyers for maybe a wild card spot, but they are bang average. Like I was looking at power rankings earlier in the week, just pulling up power rankings and whatnot, because that's a popular thing to do. And basically every power ranking article had the Penguins at like 15 or 16. That's literally bang average middle of the pack. And that's basically how I feel about this team. Now, regards to trading Jake Gensel, now I don't want to let my emotions speak for myself here. Um, I think it would be a disservice to Sidney Crosby, and I think it would I think it would do more harm than good right now trading Jake Gensel. There's a real possibility that Gensel walks into free agency and tests the open market. There's also a possibility that Gensel takes a little bit of a hometown discount to continue playing with Sidney Crosby. So while my emotions got the better of me, when was that? When did they blow those games? 2 weeks ago? I've
Mm-hmm.
since started to calm down a little bit and reassess the situation. Uh, I want to do whatever satisfies Sidney Crosby. Uh, if and he's going to be here probably until the end. I want to do whatever it takes to satisfy Sidney Crosby at the end of the day. And if that means keeping Jake Gensel here, then that's what I would do if I was Kyle Dubas.
Yeah, I I can see where you're coming from with that. I think I when they blew those, it's funny when they blew those games out west to Vegas and in Arizona. I think a lot of the Penguins fan base was just like, just throw it, like this is fucked, like just throw in the towel. But they're not that far out. Like you said, they're a bubble team right now. They're not that far out of the playoffs. But they're a severely underachieving team right now.
Yes.
I believe that there's going to be some sort of movement made. And now that movement, again, even with Jake Gensel talk set aside, that's such a hot button topic and kind of a trigger warning for Penguins fans out there right now. I think there's some tinkering maybe around the edges. I want to know what you think, Garrett. What do you think about? Okay, they acquired Eric Carlson. We all know Dubas made a phenomenal trade getting rid of some Hextall era, let's call them errors, or mishandlings, and brought in a 2 or 3 time Norris Trophy winner in Eric Carlson. If the Penguins are on the bubble, or let's say the Penguins stay where they're at going forward, is Eric Carlson ever going to be a piece that you would want the Penguins to move? Because this is something I've been spinning my wheels about. Or if the Penguins were to even maybe fall out of it a little bit, do they hang on to Eric Carlson and he's a piece of this core going forward? Or is he someone that you look to move on from?
Eric Carlson is so divisive, and he's become more divisive in recent weeks because I'm a staunch Eric Carlson defender, but yeah, you could make the argument that his play has dipped in recent weeks. And, when we were talking over the summer, we were head over heels about, oh my God, this power play is going to click at 40%. Eric Carlson's going to come in and click 90 points, 100 points again with all of this star power. Yeah, Carlson hasn't been as explosive as maybe we all thought he was going to be right off the bat, but it's of my opinion. Now, Snail, you could differ, and you're more than welcome to differ. It's of my opinion that, as you described it just there before handing the mic over, Carlson, in my opinion, is a member of this core now. He is on the same level as Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang, and probably Jake Gensel. Everybody else, you can ship him out and tomorrow, and I probably wouldn't have an issue with it. I don't think Eric Carlson is as bad as his play has warranted some of the online discussion in recent weeks. Will he eclipse 100 points and win another Norris? Maybe not, because he is 33 years old. I think he's still an elite defenseman. The mental lapses have definitely been there, and they've been noticeable. And but that's something we've been dealing with for basically the entirety of Chris Letang's career on the back end. You're going to take the good with the bad, and in Carlson's case, there's more good that outweighs the bad, in my opinion. So I view Carlson as a member of the core, and really, under no real circumstance would I think about trading him, at least this season. That now, if we're in the same position and we're talking in February 2025 and the Penguins are in the same position they are today, then, maybe it's time to have a different discussion about the landscape of the Penguins in the future and the rebuild and all that stuff. But right now, I view him as a solid contributing member of this core.
I'd agree with you. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I'm going to try not to let my emotions get involved in this. But what I think Dubas should do is listen, Erik Karlsson shouldn't go anywhere. I think he's a part of the core. Welcome aboard, Karlsson. I think the Penguins barely missed last year with their squad as it was. Erik Karlsson could be the guy to get us out of this. He's a game-changing player. And yeah,
I agree.
and I said this in the offseason when we were ranting and raving about Erik Karlsson. And I think that there was a little bit of a consensus between on our podcast here that regarding the power play and regarding how we use or how Erik Karlsson is utilized, um, I remember making an argument that on prior teams, Erik Karlsson the offense ran through him. And I think that we kind of talked on here and it was, well, he doesn't need to do that anymore because the offense, as long as Sid and Gino and Gensel are here, the offense doesn't need to run through him. The offense ran through him on a bad team last year and he had 100 points. And this isn't, let's get Erik Karlsson points. This isn't what I'm saying. But I'm saying with the power play, what I would like to see done is just give Karlsson the puck. Let him do his thing. Take the Ferrari out of the cul-de-sac and let him run. And you've got, just like we say with Sid and his wingers in the past, his career, you just need good, competent players. The Penguins have far more than good, competent players. They have Sid, they have Gino, Gensel, even I'd throw Rust in there. Very smart, competent, above average players. I want to see Erik Karlsson. You just give him the puck, especially on the power play, and he's a rover. Sometimes he's behind the net. If you watch highlights from him in San Jose last year, he's quarterbacking the power play. He's passing it off. He's going to the net. He's behind the net. Sometimes he's taking a one-timer. Sometimes he's in the bumper position. So he just kind of is ever roaming type of defenseman player out there. I think it's time to give Erik the reins and just see how that works out. At this point, the power play is so abysmal, anything would probably be welcomed that is just even a little bit different. But I want to see that happen a little bit more. And then I guess other than that, I don't really think there's much to do. I don't know if Dubas is going to go out and, does this team deserve a big fish, a big splash trade? I don't really think it's worth mortgaging the future at this point in time right now. Would you agree?
If they were in a better position standing wise, I'd probably be more inclined to say, screw it. Like, this might be the last real chance that they have. Trade Jaeger, trade Owen Pickering. But that's not where they're at right now. They're on the outside looking in. I think they're 4 or 5 points removed from a playoff spot, I think, if memory serves. If they weren't, like I said, if they were fighting for like second or third in the Metropolitan, then I'd have a different opinion. But no, I don't think, as things stand, I don't think they're worthy of getting a big fish. That's the thing I want so bad. I just want to see consistency. Like, is it so hard to, is it so much to ask for, like a 4 or 5 game or even a 3-game winning streak, like win 3 lose 1, win 3 lose 1? Is it so, with all of the talent they have, it's just so maddening that they lack the consistency, and they've lacked it basically all season.
Well, I want to say they've lacked that consistency. Haven't we seen this behavior kind of just bleed into their game since, I want to say, since like, the Islanders playoff series? I think
you're probably right. You could probably make that argument.
I feel like every year the bad habits have become more consistent, and then we're a year removed from missing the playoffs here, seeing this team miss the playoffs, and this year it's just been like if they can string together just back-to-back wins, we're like, okay, here we go. Finally some footing for this team.
Exactly.
And what brings that consistency? I don't know. One thing I have, this is a tinfoil hat thing. They let go of Jacques Martin that year. I believe it was the year that they lost to the Islanders in that playoffs round. Jacques Martin is a system oriented coach, very defensive minded. And ever since he left, these inconsistencies have started to rear their ugly head. And then they hired Todd Reardon, who, if you look at his resume, he's been a great power play coach historically in his career. But, like, dude, when is he going to answer? Like, what coach would survive the drought that the Penguins have gone through?
So the Penguins, I was reading a Josh Yohe article in The Athletic recently. I don't know if it's Penguins policy or NHL policy, but NHL assistant, or at least for the Penguins assistant coaches don't have to answer.
That's NHL policy.
Is it NHL? So yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, unless Reardon comes out and makes a public statement of some sort, you're not going to hear an explanation, or you're not going to get a press conference from Todd Reardon. And Snail, you bring up good points regarding Reardon's history, even his prior history in Pittsburgh before he left to go coach the Capitals. He was a top 10 power play specialist, power play coach in the league. I just at this point, is it more on Reardon, or as you also mentioned before, Snail, is it more on the Penguins, and whether you call it lackadaisical play in their offensive zone on the power play with the man advantage? Is it lackadaisical, or is it mental mistakes? Is it globetrotter hockey? Is it a combination of all of those things? Because the talent is there. We've said how many times on this podcast, this season alone, the talent is there for this power play to be clicking at least 20%, if not a larger percentage than that. And it's not. I think it's at like 13 right now, which is one of the worst marks in team history. So is it Todd Reardon or is it the players? Well, considering looking at Reardon's resume and where his teams have finished power play percentage wise, maybe it is more on the players for trying to find that perfect, pretty goal, the tic tac toe passing, instead of firing everything and anything at the net when you have the man advantage. I'm not a coach. I don't claim to be a coach. I don't play a hockey coach on TV, but it's just food for thought at this point. Maybe it is more on the players than it is the coach and the power play structure.
Yeah, is it the chicken or the egg? I don't know, but whatever it is, let's hope that they get it together going forward here, because these games are, I mean, I'm going to need to get on blood pressure medication before too
Well, the good thing for me is I'm already on blood pressure medication, so
long.
I mean things could get worse, but they could also get they could also get better. So who knows? Well, stay tuned. Will I be in a casket by the end of the season?
Let's hope not.
Stay tuned. Well, you never. The world's going to shit anyway. Anyway, we'll move on to
It's another
question.
podcast.
Yeah, it's another conversation for another time. Question 5 from Brian. Snail, would you like to see one-piece wooden sticks make a comeback in 2024 NHL?
Dude, it's funny. I was thinking about this like a few days ago. Yeah, I actually would. I was thinking like how much, I mean, I don't know. Garrett, have you ever picked up like a composite like stick, like a carbon stick?
I have not. No.
Okay. Well, these things are complete weapons. Like, this is kind of like, I guess the analogy that's like closest that I could use is like, have you ever like a wooden bat versus like a aluminum bat in baseball?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The pop and the flex on a stick, it's just, I mean, it's incredible what the difference it makes handling a puck and shooting a puck. I was thinking, and God, sticks have gotten so like just diverse, the different curves. Back in the day when you'd have a wooden stick, you get a torch and you'd heat up the blade and you could create your own curve on it. It just couldn't be illegal, and they have a way to measure. Officials have a way to measure if your stick has an illegal curve on it. But it's just a lot, and I was thinking like, man, how cool would it be they brought back if they banned them or something, and we went back to the Stone Age, and the NHLers had to use wooden sticks again. I don't know. I don't know if it would necessarily like equal the playing field, but I think it would be. I just think it would be cool. I have a soft spot in my heart for old time hockey. I saw a picture. Rick Tockett's out coaching in Vancouver. He's got a wooden Northland stick from back in the day that he uses in his practices, and I just think it looks badass. I like the feel of a wood stick. I think I've heard other players that they like the balance and the feel of a wooden stick better than these featherweight, hollowed out composite sticks. I'm just a sucker for it. I think I don't know. If you ask, like my buddy Andy, shout out Andy, he plays hockey. He loves his like high tech P28 curve on a just the lightest stick you've ever felt. You can barely feel it in your hands. He's all about that kind of stuff, and he loves the way it feels on the ice and how it affects his play. I'm the opposite. Let's go back to just old hunks of wood, and you can shave them down. You can make them illegal. You can heat them up with a torch and spray paint the stick black so you can't see where the puck's on. Like I'm all for that. Let's go back to that, Brian. Garrett, you got any take on this?
No, I've never been in a position personally or professionally to where I can, give my opinion on something like this. I was wondering while you were describing that how the weight difference between an old-timey wooden stick and the modern era sticks that they use today. And so it sounds like from what you were describing that today's sticks are super lightweight, light as a feather compared to, and it would make sense. I mean, wood is probably going to be heavier than what the athletes of today are using. So it would make sense. I don't have an opinion on this sort of thing one way or the other. But yeah, I mean, I would be curious. I'd have more to say on the conversation if I was in a position to where I could compare the ins and outs of a wooden stick, an old timey stick versus a stick of today. I've just never been in a position to do so.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, even just regard the last thing I'll say about the wood sticks. I was shooting with a wood stick. I have an old Easton Shanahan stick that's brand new that I shoot with on my shooting pad every once in a while. It's got a big flat square toe on it, and it is so dead. Like if you for a slap shot or even a wrister, it just is such a muffin. It's really fluttery and slow coming off compared to if I'm using like a even a two-piece stick that's both carbon. It's just a more dead feeling compared to that, and it's very, I'll say it's very satisfying shooting with a carbon stick, the way it just whips and snaps off that blade. But I don't know. I think it's awesome. When I was younger, I played in a wood bat league in baseball, and we couldn't use aluminum bats when technically that at that age we were using aluminum. And that kind of sparked my love. I was like, oh no, this is actually cool. Like the feel of it. It's just a different feeling. I'm all for it, Brian. And I think Garrett, if you should go to Big Five or whatever you have out there and pick up a wood stick and go out in your driveway and just I don't know, flick a wiffle ball around. I think you'd have fun.
I gotta get an old drying machine like Sidney Crosby did,
There you
and just
go.
and just shoot pucks into that drying machine.
Just use your sisters or something.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Just go to her house and just start wrecking her appliances. Yeah, for sure.
You're in her basement. She's just like, Garrett, what are you doing
What
here?
is that
Bang,
noise? Bang,
bang.
bang, bang, bang.
You're like, I'm working on the one timer with the wood stick.
She'd be like, "What? What does that even mean?"
She'd probably call it. She'd be like, Garrett, we need like a mental health check on this guy. What the hell is wrong with him? All right, let's move on here to question 6. I could talk about sticks all day. Uh, Garrett, Brian asks here on question 6, do you ever think we will get the real reason why general manager Jim Rutherford stepped down? He recently signed an extension and he turned the Canucks around.
Do you guys, Snail, and anyone listening, do you remember when Rutherford came to Pittsburgh and replaced Ray Shiro? I think it was Ray Shiro at that point. Yeah,
Yep,
and I remember when he was hired, he said in one of his opening press conferences, yeah, something to the effect of, "Yeah, I'll do this for a few years and probably ride off into the sunset." And here we are, all these years later, and he just signs a multi-year extension with the Vancouver Canucks. I just think that's hilarious.
it
But
is.
um, I think since his departure from the Penguins, there have been little bits and pieces that have kind of trickled out. I think Rutherford is no stranger to the media. He is more than willing to give the media a quote, whether it's a good quote, bad quote, or something in between. He is just an old school guy in that sense. So I think there have been. I've read interviews of like his time in Pittsburgh since he's been in Vancouver, and I think he's like given a few hints as to why he's left here and there. Maybe when he's done playing, maybe he'll come out and give a more definite answer. But as to why he left Pittsburgh, I, I I don't want to speak for Rutherford. I don't really know why he was it a power struggle thing? Was it, uh Lemieux at the time wanted to go in one direction and Rutherford wanted to go. Did he want to trade one of the stars? Did he want to trade Malkin, for instance, and Mario Lemieux say no? Like, we're not trading Malkin. Did something like that come up? I don't know. I don't want to speak for Rutherford because I may be off base, and it may be maybe Rutherford just wanted to recharge his batteries, and unless he decides to come out openly and discuss his exit from Pittsburgh, I remember it being awkward. Then that leading into the hiring of Ron Hextall, but until he comes out and gives a more definite answer, we'll just have to be left speculating as to why GMJR left the post.
Let's add some more to that speculation here because when after I read this question, I thought because I thought we already knew why he left, and I don't know where I read this or where I heard this or if this was a rumor, but I thought he left because that year he tried to make a trade and whether management being the people above him, whether that was Mario Lemieux himself or someone else, nixed a trade. I thought I thought there was a trade. He tried to trade Letang or something like that, and then they nixed that trade. And when he was not given that autonomy, he essentially said, "All right, I'm out of here." But I actually, while you were talking, Garrett, I just Googled why did Jim Rutherford leave Pittsburgh, and this is from Hockey Feed. I'm a little familiar with it. I don't know if anyone else is. This might be complete horseshit. This might be, I don't know. But this says here, this is a quote from Rutherford himself. "I don't want to suggest I had mental health issues," Rutherford told Jason Mackey. "The way I would describe it is I wasn't mentally as strong as I should have been to be myself and continue to do that job. I was starting to react to things differently than I normally would, which led to where I got to."
From that quote, it makes it sound like maybe he did just want a fresh start. Maybe he did want to recharge his batteries. Maybe, when you're doing a job for so long in the same place, maybe you just want a different experience. It could be a wide variety of things. So, again, I don't want to speak for Rutherford. We should get him on the pod, and then
That would
it'll
be
be like
sick.
it'll be a tell all of why Jimmy Rutherford left Pittsburgh. But
It says Jim Rutherford blamed the mental effects of the COVID-19 pandemic as the reason why he stepped down as GM, which
that's
that
right.
affected everybody.
You're right. I remember reading that at the time. That's right. I mean, yeah, for an older fella like Rutherford, who is probably used to doing a lot of things in person in the office, and now he's here trying. At the time, he was probably trying to adjust to like the conducting NHL business over Zoom and whatnot. Uh, all of those factors combined, I'm sure, probably played a role in Rutherford stepping away. That's right. I totally forgot. I remember that Rutherford saying something to that effect during COVID.
What and this isn't necessarily a shot at Canada, but like he left that to go to a hockey mad market in Vancouver if he was like not reacting well to scenarios in Pittsburgh. I don't know. It's just a little ironic, isn't it? Going to a Canadian market.
Is Rutherford Canadian or American?
I thought he was. Is he from Pittsburgh?
Jimmy
Or did he
Rutherford?
play here?
He played in Pittsburgh in the God, what that would have been the 70s.
Because yeah, he was a goaltender, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a goaltender.
Let's see what it says here. He's a Canadian. Oh, okay. He was
Okay.
born in Beaton, New Tecumseh, Canada.
It's in Ontario.
Okay, he's a good old Ontario boy. Whatever. Well, anyways, I guess that solves that why he'd go to Canada. That's home for him. But
Yeah, sure. Well, let's move to question 7 then, and talk about this question from Brian Snail. Snail, I think You have dogs and cats, as Brian says. Are you dog or cat people? Brian chirps at the end of this question with, "I can definitely see a few cats in the basement with Garrett."
So dude, growing up, I always was like, just by default, I'm a dog guy. Because I have had some great family dogs in my life, and I do love dogs. I love all animals, but I love dogs. I got to be honest with you. I got a cat that changed my whole life. I got this cat. I adopted this cat. His name was Sully, named after Sully, France, and I just didn't like that name. So I just started calling him Susan and Sue, like a boy name, because he's a boy cat, a big orange tabby cat named Sue. And this cat changed my whole life. I was like, no, I think I'm a cat guy, which like you red flag, whatever, chirp being soft because you like cats, dude. This cat is awesome. And then I actually helped rescue and save this abandoned baby kitten. So I have one dog and I have two cats and I have also a rabbit. I have a the rabbit is essentially a cat as well. It free roams. It's potty trained. Her name's Murray. I named her after Matt Murray. Um, I'm a cat person, I think, like at heart. I have this kitten. His name's Ruben. These two cats changed my life, man. I love cats. I love how just like mean they are. And by mean, I mean more like they're just like independent and standoffish compared to a dog, but they also have this like very attached, loving side. I don't know. I love cats. I would say that I am a cat person at this point in my life, but I do have appreciation and love for all animals. Garrett, what about you?
My whole life, my entire upbringing, up until like a year and a half ago, it was nothing but dogs in the house. I am not anti-cat. I am more pro dog than I am anti-cat. And for the reasons you mentioned, Snail, like a cat's demeanor is turns me off. Like, and again, it's not for everybody. Like, I enjoy the companionship of a dog more than I would the independent nature and like the built-in stubbornness of a cat. But I get like my mom took in a stray cat who ended up on our back porch like a year and a half ago, and so the cat lives with us now. Um, so we have a cat and a dog right now. But I think just because I've grown up with dogs in my household, I'm probably more pro dog than pro cat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so like if you do you get along with the cat? Does the cat like you and does he ever like sit on your lap or like follow you around?
No, like the cat is terrified of me, and I don't know
Uh
why. Because like I don't interact that much with the cat. Like, the cat just does her own thing, and like it's not like I'm in the cat's space. Like, I'm not like, invading its personal space or whatever. But for whatever reason, like every time I'm walking around the house, the cat just, and I don't know if it's like this for other people. I haven't noticed, but for me specifically, like if I'm walking into the dining room or the kitchen, or if I'm walking downstairs, back upstairs, like the cat just skitters away really quickly for some reason. I've never done anything to the cat. Like, I mean, I don't abuse animals if that's what you're thinking. But
no,
no,
dude, this is my parents' cat. I helped name this cat. He's 10 years old. We named him Crosby back in 2014 and this cat, I mean, I was there when we picked him up. I've done nothing but spoil him and give him treats and try to pet him. He sees me from afar coming up the driveway or something or on the back porch. He runs away like in
bro, it's
fear.
the same thing. It's the same exact thing with this cat. I'll never understand it.
I don't either. It is offensive though. I get that. That would
Yeah,
be
that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I take offense to that because, like, I'm I'm not a bad person. I don't like abuse animals or anything. I'm just there. Like, I just take up. I'm just a human being, man. Just existing, just vibing. And
and
this
he
cat,
hates it.
yeah, the cat just hates me for some. Like, I never did anything to this cat. Like, yeah, like I take offense to that.
Yeah, I think if you got your own cat, like if you got a kitten and raised it, dude, the love from a cat, I think because of their demeanor and how standoffish they can be, that is almost like rewarding when like a cat, dude, like with this kitten that like I helped save and raise from. I mean, I was bottle feeding it. Like he couldn't even. I was one of the first things he ever saw when he opened his eyes. Which I don't know how he likes me, because that would probably ruin anyone's first moments of eyesight.
For
But this
sure,
cat,
for sure.
but this cat sleeps under the blankets, like in my armpit or on my neck or like under my leg. Like and everywhere I go, like when I'm in the house, he just follows me. When I go to the bathroom, he's like trying to get in, which I don't know why he'd want to be in there while I'm going to the bathroom. But wherever it is I go, when I'm getting food, he just is my little shadow. And there's something about that will turn your heart of coal into, what is it, the Grinch, the heart that's just like, you'll have like a heart that's 3 times bigger. It's just the most amazing thing when you have that going on. So maybe you just need to invest in your own kitten and cat.
I need to invest in cat coin. I should have invested in Bitcoin, but now I'm gonna invest in cat coin.
Yeah, cat coin. There you go. All right, are we on question 8?
Yeah, question 8 from Brian.
Okay, question 8. All right, Garrett, are we going to, this is from Brian, are we going to When We Were Young Fest in Vegas in October, which I believe is, for those that don't know, I could be wrong, but I think, isn't that the big, essentially the emo festival that's
Yeah,
replaced Van's Warp Tour?
yeah. I let me pull up the lineup here. I tuned into When We Were Young. I think I found a stream of it last year. It was last year. It was Green Day and Blink. This year it is. I think My Chemical Romance is the
Hmm.
headlining act. I think it's like the 20th anniversary of the Black Parade. I think.
Oh, I remember that when that dropped.
Yeah. Fallout Boy and let me pull it up. Fallout Boy and My Chemical Romance look like they're the lead acts for this year's festival. Let me look at some of these bands here. I
All
have to
right,
get up to my computer. Let me see.
let's see, A
I like
Day to Remember.
I like it. I really like Day to Remember. I really like Coheed and Cambria. I've seen them in Pittsburgh. I really enjoy Coheed and Cambria. Under Oath. I've seen Under Oath. I really enjoyed them. Um, who else? Let me see. State Champs. I enjoy State Champs a lot. Hawthorne Heights. That's like Midwestern emo right there.
I love Midwest emo. It's like a huge guilty pleasure of mine.
The Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. I really enjoy them. Let's see.
Mom Jeans, hell yeah. I've seen Mom Jeans out here in Seattle. Great, again, kind of a Midwest emo-y type band. Very whiny and moany, but great, kind of with a pop punk, a little bit of pop punk in there. I've never known how to say their name, because I've only heard other teenagers at the time pronounce it. It's either the Chiodos or the Kyotos.
Yeah, my brother-in-law, when he was in, I think, high school, I think he was listening to them. I remember his Xbox gamer tag was this band name, and he told me that like years later. I'm like, what the hell does this mean? And it ended up being this band right here,
Wasn't
Chiodos
the
or Kyotos,
wasn't the Penguins goalie coach Andy Kyotos or
Ki,
Kyo?
Ki, Kyodo. There was no S.
Oh,
I
there
think
was
it
no
was,
S.
yeah. Uh,
Thursday, the band Thursday, for those of you out there, that band means so much to me. I used to have a Thursday T-shirt that I loved and wore to shit. I eventually got too fat to wear it. That band is one of the best post-punk bands to come out in a long time. I believe they're out in New Jersey. They kind of had a little bit of they got back together and played some big shows right after COVID. Check out Thursday. I see that they're playing. They're in the lineup. That is so awesome. Worth
I
the price of admission.
I saw Pierce the Veil and the Used. I think they were co-headliners at a tour last year. I saw them in Pittsburgh. I'd really enjoyed that show. Um, All American Rejects. That's like pure pop punk right there. That's up my alley. My brother-in-law really liked Dance Gavin Dance for a long time. Um,
They were in that like kind of like screamo
yeah,
resurgence that was going on with like I just think of them in the I don't know if you remember this, Garrett, but the band t-shirt graphics were super cartoony and
yes,
crazy
yes,
colors.
yes.
LS Dunes, I believe they're a super group with a couple of guys from My Chemical Romance. Let me see who's in this band. Okay, yeah, they're a super group here. Circa Survives, Seosin, The Sound of Animals Fighting, and there's a guy from My Chemical Romance in there as well. Thursday, awesome stuff. This looks like a tremendous lineup.
I'm on their main website right now. Hotel and ticket packages starting at $577. So
Sheesh.
I mean, if you go with a group of friends, you could easily split some of these costs, so it's not as like as it's more manageable. So, but I mean, my brother-in-law, who I go to all these concerts with, I mean, he has two kids, two small kids he has to raise now. So uh, I don't think he and I going out to Vegas, I don't think we could make the logistics work from that sense. But I'd love to go to when we were young and just like bask in the environment and take in
Oh
some good
yeah.
music.
Dude, oh my god, I would love to do that, but here's the thing, I got to be honest with you. Brian, he asked this. Yeah, Brian. Um See, I'm still upset that they got rid of Vans Warp Tour, cuz Vans
Oh, I know
Warp
a lot of
Tour,
people. Yeah.
they came to each and every state,
Yes.
and now they're having a central, it's essentially a centralized location now where they're back in Vegas. Like, dude, come on, I don't want to go to Vegas. Like,
Yeah, I know. I know what
Vegas
you
for
mean.
me is a lot closer than you, I think, Garrett.
Yeah,
Vegas
for
for you is a
yeah.
lot farther. It's really sick when you can just count on Warp Tour. It's not going to be the same lineup. Like, that is a stacked lineup. But with the resurgence of I would say, the pop punk revival, as well as some of these bands that were big, not to sound old, but like when I was younger, and now they've come full circle and they're popular again. I just think that you'd see a lot of these bands at a Warp Tour. I wear Vans shoes. I'm a backer of Vans, the company. I would love to see a revival of that. So I'm a little bit almost like sour at when we were young. Like, can we stop doing this and incentivize Vans to get Warp Tour kicked off again? I don't know.
I saw some rumors online to put a bow on this. We'll move on. I saw a rumor that like Warp Tour they're trying to revive Warp Tour for like 2025 or 2026. I don't know how much credence there is to that rumor, but I know for the same reasons why you are sad that it's gone are the same reasons why they're trying to revive it.
It's
I
so
don't.
funny you say, when you say Vans, this mega company is trying to revive it. I'm
Yeah, I
like,
know.
dude, like, you, with the reaches you have, are you trying to spin me a yarn that it's somehow difficult for you and I'm supposed to buy that? And also, why would they get rid of it in the first place? It wasn't like COVID happened and they stopped doing Warp Tour. They stopped Warp Tour before COVID, I believe. Like, what,
Yeah, it was. I'm
many
pretty
years
sure it was
before
long.
that.
Yeah, yeah, it was years before COVID or anything like that happened.
I don't know. Yeah, we should turn our podcast into a Let's Revive Warp Tour podcast and just talk about like emo music and sad boy tunes and
Oh,
see where
absolutely.
that gets us. Because
Absolutely. I don't have why don't I have a girlfriend? I don't know. I'm just gonna turn on some sad pop punk and Midwestern emo and cry myself to sleep at night. But that's a conversation. Like Snail said, that's a conversation for another podcast altogether. As we,
I was
as
gonna
we
say, Garrett, I have a girl and I still go sit in the corner and listen to sad boy tunes with my headphones in and
there we
cry
go.
about
So,
it.
I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone. At least Snail's here, and we can listen to our sad boy music together. But Snail, this next question is for you. As multiple weeks now, we are continuing the knee replacement discussion. As Brian says, more on the knee replacement. Brian grew up wrestling, so I always had knee and ankle pain, and I used to run anywhere from 5 to 10 miles after work. But the knees and ankles couldn't handle it anymore, so I had to stop. I get so jealous of seeing people running because Brian misses that feeling. Snail, give us an update on the knee replacement, and have you booked your surgery yet?
No, that could happen probably at any moment. I just wanted to quickly touch on this. There's some details you read out there in Brian's question that I don't really understand. And that is, he said, I used to run anywhere from 5 to 10 miles after work, which is, he walks. I mean, how many steps did he say he would take on his walks? He's walking, or he's running. Dude, Garrett, do you run for any reason other than maybe for your life?
Good God, no. You will never, under any circumstance, like Snail mentioned, unless I am being threatened for my life and the adrenaline has to kick in. Let me make myself perfectly clear here. I have to be feeling the effects of that adrenaline because there is no circumstance where I will be running for the enjoyment of running, even for exercise's sake. Like, I understand the importance of exercise and what running can do to your cardiovascular health and all of that, but under no circumstance will I ever be running for enjoyment and or exercise.
What about after you just worked a full day?
And that is the kicker. That is where like that gets to like really sick territory. Like you work an 8-hour shift and you decide, screw it, I'm gonna go run for 5 or 10 miles after I get done with this 8-hour shift. Like that is some demented behavior right
It
there.
honestly upsets me. Like I don't really feel good right now.
It makes me irrationally angry that we're discussing this in a way that we are. Like, imagine working for 8 hours and just, you want to come home, decompress. No, this guy wants to go back outside, or maybe he's on a treadmill. I don't know. But he wants to keep running for 5 to 10 additional miles. Like, what is wrong with you?
Dude, do you know how far 5 to 10 miles is on foot? Like for an average person like myself and maybe Garrett? Like, if I have to walk a mile, I'm like, is it really worth doing? But if you told me that I had to run 5 to 10 miles and I'm not being financially incentivized to do that, it's not negotiable. It's not happening.
You know what? You're right. That's a good point. If I was financially incentivized to like, I don't know if they don't, we should like patent this. We should make an app to where we are get financially incentivized to start running slash jogging slash walking. And
Yes, an app. Oh my God, an app where each step you're mining Bitcoin as you walk.
see, bingo, absolutely. We are peering into the future of cryptocurrency and app development right here on this Pittsburgh Penguins sports podcast. But I'm
Jog
still
coin.
I'm still drawing. Oh, that's brilliant. Like, write that down. That is brilliant. Like, I'm still irrationally angry at Brian getting enjoyment out of he says verbatim, I miss that feeling of running. So this is a guy right here, folks, that enjoys the feeling of running 5 to 10 miles for enjoyment's sake. Like,
After work.
after work. Like, this guy needs to be locked up. You think I need to be in the basement? Like, this is a guy right here, folks, that needs to be put in a straitjacket for the foreseeable future.
He needs to be studied because people like that, they just don't build people like that anymore. I bet you this guy's ancestors probably traversed the Oregon Trail and probably before them set sail on the whatever the what are those boats that landed in the Boston Harbor?
The Mayflower,
Yes, his
like
his
Plymouth Rock.
relatives
Yeah, yeah,
Plymouth
yeah,
Rock. His relatives were the first people to see Plymouth Rock,
yeah.
and before that, they were finding spices in India.
Yep,
He's
yep,
just
yep,
cut from that cloth. If that's how your brain operates,
yep. You know what? You're probably. I mean, we're gonna get a follow up to this. I guarantee it. But until then, I'm just gonna keep stacking on top of Brian and
yes,
continuing to make fun of him. Uh, let's see. Did you read question 9 or did I read question 9?
I believe you did. So I'll read you question 10 here.
All right, we'll go to question 10.
Brian S, do you think the Oilers will tie and or break the Penguins' longest win streak record that I believe happened in '93?
It has since been tied since this question was posted. The question now becomes, Snail, will the Oilers break it when they come back from the All-Star festivities? They play Vegas on February, what is that, 6th, I think? February 5th or 6th. And that would be the game where if they win, I think they take that record. I think that record becomes theirs. So boy, oh boy. I thought remember when Columbus went on that run like back in 2015, 16 or something like that? I thought Columbus was going to break the record at that point.
I thought they'd be less deserving. Like I didn't want that to happen because one, they were like a rival at the time. I
Yeah.
don't know. I just didn't like them as much. But this Edmonton team has been oddly historically good. Like last year, they set a power play standard that had never been seen before in the 100+ years of the NHL, and that's saying something. And then this year, historically bad. And then bouncing back to be historically good, I don't think this is a matter of like what team is this, but like this is a great hockey team that is run really well. And if they break it, then if you look in the history books, the team that broke the Penguins record from 93, the star-studded cast of players, if you see McDavid and Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins, Evander Kane, Corey Perry. I mean, dude, that's a team that could do great things. So in my mind, I'm like, so be it. I think that I think they could do it.
All right, I just pulled it up. I misspoke earlier. The Oilers right now have 16 straight wins. That ties the Columbus Blue Jackets record of 16 straight wins in 2016-17. So they have to beat Vegas when they
To
come
tie it.
to tie the Penguins record, and then they'd have to get another victory on top of that to have the record all to themselves.
So Vegas doesn't have Jack Eichel, and that's a big piece of their team. They're not the juggernaut that they were in the beginning of the season. I just don't. I don't know. Two teams coming off the All Star break. It could be a very sloppy game, almost a
That's
pick
what I'm
'em.
thinking.
But you might see almost like a playoff atmosphere for that game. There's incentive for the Oilers to win. There's incentive for the Golden Knights to squander any chance that they have. And these guys have met in the playoffs before, so this could be this could be a must watch regular season game coming up here. Garrett, do you think that would you be pissed if they did it? Would you hold any ill will or grudge?
No, because if there's one team that had the capability to do it, if it wasn't going to be the Penguins, it was probably going to be a team led by Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. I'm more amazed at the fact that the Oilers have turned their season around from one of the worst starts in franchise history, one of the worst starts imaginable with Connor McDavid at the helm. And now they have turned their season completely around to where they're on the brink of history. But this time, instead of it being bad history, they're on the brink of making good history, for lack of a better description. That to me is more, I'm more impressed. And like, that is more of a, wow, I can't believe they accomplished that than I can't believe the Oilers took the Penguins record. I don't operate that way. If the Oilers take the record, fine, that's whatever, It like, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I'm just more impressed at the complete turnaround the Oilers have had since the start of the season.
Agreed.
Alrighty. Let's switch it up here from Brian. We'll go to Kim Larson for the final two questions of the mailbag here. Kim asks, Snail, if you could move two franchises for whatever reason, what two teams are you moving and where are you placing them?
Boy, that's a good question, and there's a lot of teams I would move, but I'm also like not a normal person in the way I think about about hockey at times. I'm a bit of a nut. I was a kid who used to be like, I don't want teams in the Sun Belt to win because I don't think that like that was me. I was like, they don't play hockey in those hot, humid southern states. Like they shouldn't have hockey teams. But I'm not that person anymore. I've matured. I have a little bit of a different outlook. But with that said, I'm moving the Arizona Coyotes, and it's definitely not to Utah of all places, like we've been hearing lately. I'm taking the Arizona Coyotes, and I'm planting them firmly above the U.S. border in Canada somewhere. I'm thinking it, uh, Alberta has two teams. Vancouver is kind of like, I don't know where in BC there could necessarily be a second NHL team. Toronto clamors for another team to be moved to Hamilton, but Toronto takes up so much air time, and they are lunatics up there for hockey that I'm not putting another team in Toronto. Um, I think in Montreal, the French Canadians up there in Quebec, I think that fan base deserves another team. But I'm taking the Arizona Coyotes and I'm moving them to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I think that's a more blue collar. A lot of the players that come from Saskatoon are just my type of hockey player. I think there's a certain culture built into that city that appreciates the type of hockey that I like. I'm moving to Arizona and I'm putting them in Saskatoon and giving those good old Canadian boys and girls what they deserve. And I guess if I were to move, Garrett, I'll throw it over to you. What's a team that you would move, and where would you move them to?
I'll agree. I'll say first off, I'm going to move the Arizona Coyotes. I'm moving them to Houston, Texas. Uh, I,
Jesus.
I am keeping them in the Western Conference, so you wouldn't have to screw with realignment and whatnot. Keeps them in the West. Keeps them in the. I guess you could keep them in the Central Division since the Coyotes are already there. Uh, get them out of Arizona. Houston. I mean, it's going to happen eventually. Houston and Utah are probably the next two cities that are probably going to get, or Salt Lake City, I should say. Uh, Houston is one of the most populous cities in the country that doesn't have an NHL team, and I'm sure with how the NHL operates, that just brings up a whole bunch of dollar signs in their head, tapping into that market that is, again, not starving for hockey, but if Gary Bettman has his way, it's a non-traditional hockey market. You have a rivalry there that you could build up with the Dallas Stars. Houston and Dallas don't like each other. You could build that up. So I'm moving the Coyotes to Houston. The second team. That's a good question.
Garrett, hear me out here quick. So I think that where a team right now, the NHL is talking about expansion again. And you know what drives expansion and movement of teams is money. Money rules everything around us, is what Wu Tang once said. And I firmly believe in that still. But when are we going to stop looking at the money, and when are we going to do the right thing? And that's move an NHL team to a place where hockey is embedded in its culture, where there were frozen ponds, where there were kids on Christmas Day going out and playing with their new Sherwoods and Titan sticks out on the ponds, where there's been generation of ice skates on children's feet. What about Montana? I know. Have you ever been to Montana, Garrett?
I have not. No.
I haven't either, but I know that that's what goes on there. Montana, I have friends that are from Montana. It's a grittier, it's a blue collar type state. I think overall, there's a lot of money that's moving in there. There's ski resorts. There's all sorts of recreational. There's a lot of recreation. People that enjoy recreation go there and spend a lot of money at their various resorts and theme parks and whatnot. Let's move a team to like Montana and just right up there it's a border state. It actually gets cold there. It's not Houston where there are generations of people that have never seen a snowflake in Houston. Let's move hockey to a place where it would really mean something to the community. You got it in Minnesota. You've got it in or maybe what about Maine or something like that? They're way up there. There's kids that play hockey on ponds up there. Look, when can we start thinking like that? Or is this something that I'm just a lunatic for even wanting to believe in, and it'll never happen?
I don't think it will happen because you answered your own question there. Money drives everything, and knowing how this league operates, it operates by way of the dollar sign. The owners are so attracted to the $500 million expansion fees. I probably when if they go the way of expansion for Salt Lake City, you're looking at an expansion fee of what, $750 million at least.
I thought it was I thought it
Was
was
it a
going to start
billion?
with a B. Yeah.
Probably, honestly, like that's not out of the realm of possibility, and that's probably more likely what's going to happen. You're looking at $1 billion expansion fee. Uh, I thought you were going to take that discussion, Snail. Before you said Montana, I thought you were going to say Quebec City and like reviving the Nordiques. I thought that's where you were going to take that conversation because people have been clamoring for a revival of the Nordiques since they left Quebec City.
I mean, I want Quebec City to get their team back. I think they've just got a beautiful arena, I've heard, in Quebec City, just waiting for an NHL team. And you know what? I think they deserve it, but Gary Bettman just waves his naughty little finger at them and says, "No, no, no,
You can't have
Dikembe
this."
Mutombo, not in my house, not today. Don't even think about it." And it upsets me because I think Gary Bettman has an agenda, and I think Gary Bettman hates Canadians, and I think he's trying to steal their sport and their culture away from them and give it to the South, which I hate the South in the United States. So I'll digress. Garrett, I'll let you finish this one off and give your thoughts before we move on because I get a little fired up over these things.
No, I was looking at some quotes earlier today, as a matter of fact, and uh, today the news broke that the NHL is going back to the Olympics. They're going to have that Four Nations of Hockey tournament next year, I think. So a lot on the horizon for the NHL and its players. And Bettman was asked, or someone of high-ranking status in the NHL was asked about the Arizona Coyote situation and the arena situation. Will the Coyotes owner Merwello, I think that's how you say his name, will he get the funding in place for a new NHL ready arena in Arizona? And I was reading that it may or may not happen at this point, which is not a good sign, because if there's one thing Gary Bettman wants, it's for hockey to work in the desert. I see you shaking your head. Part of at this point, Snail, I'm more inclined to agree with you and shake your head and go, at what point do you just cut your losses? It's not working in this market. Just let Arizona have an NFL team and an NBA team, have the Phoenix Suns and the Arizona Cardinals, and cut your losses. You're the second tenant in a college hockey college arena. You're the second. You're not even the primary tenant. You're playing second fiddle to what is the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Yes.
So that, I mean, right there, what professional sports league would go into a situation like that other than the NHL and say, yeah, this will work. This will work for the time being.
It's
like
delusion.
it really is delusion. Like the NFL under no circumstance would downsize to that extent and wait for one of their teams to have an arena built like that. It would just never happen.
Garrett, you bring up the NFL and what they would do if they were in that situation. I'll take it a step further and just be like, did you see what Seattle did? And I'm not tooting my own horn here, but like, did you see what Seattle did when they got the opportunity for an NHL team? They renovated. They moved heaven and earth, quite literally.
It's basically a new arena. Climate Pledge is a new arena, and it's been there for like 50 years. That building, the structure of the building has been there for like 50 years. But for all intents and purposes, it's a brand new arena.
It is, and they got to it like there was a desire. The like you said, this owner Morello or whatever his name is down in Arizona, he's trying to get funding. They're poking and prodding. They talked about Mesa, they talked about Phoenix, they're talking about Scottsdale. It's just like yeses and then no's and backtracking. Let's just face it. And I'm sorry to the diehard fans that are in Arizona for the Coyotes, because they haven't won a whole lot, but they've had some great players come through. The Gretzky was a coach in Arizona. You've had Jeremy Roenick. You've had Walt Kachucks. You've got Clay. They're actually good for the first time in a decade this year. And let's just be honest. And I'm not talking to the fans out there. I'm talking about the rest of Arizona. Like the desire is just simply not there, because the states that want hockey teams, they fork up the money quick. The money is not even the issue. It's they just make it happen. It happens rather quickly. So Vegas wanted it, boom, got done. Seattle said they wanted it, boom, got done. They got Russell Wilson and Marshawn Lynch and Jerry Bruckheimer together, and they just said, here's my money, shut up, we got the arena, give us the team. It's not happening in Arizona, and at this point, they're, like I said, relevant and good for the first time in a decade, and that is not helping whatsoever. Let's just face it, the experiment is over, Gary Bettman.
I agree, to put a bow on it. I think the clock is ticking in Arizona, and I think it's only a matter of time before that team is moved out of the desert
and into Utah, which is such a boring place. Like, come on. Anyways, all right, Garrett, let's go to question 12. And this is the last question, I believe, of our mailbag for today. And Kim Larson asks, does Walmart deliver food to Garrett's basement when he's in quarantine? And does it work the same way as the pizza delivery in Home Alone?
So not only Snail, I'm looking directly at you, and Robbie, if he were here, not only do we have Brian ragging on me for being locked up in a basement and being punished, but now we have Kim Larson, one of our loyal European viewers, or listeners, I should say, ragging on me, and you've turned this funny little side joke on the podcast, locking me up in a basement. I see you smiling. I may not have my face cam, but I can see you.
That was
you
Robbie who brought up the basement thing. That
oh,
was actually his thing.
so okay, so you're not free. You're not escaping this, Snail. Even if it was, so you
I've
had the chance.
perpetuated it.
Exactly. That's what I'm gonna say. You had the chance to stomp out the embers of the flame, and no, you just continue to fan those flames. And now we have members of our listening audience continually, and now they're getting in on talking about me living in a basement like I'm some sort of chained up animal. And it's because of you and Robbie thinking that just because when I'm not here on days when I can't be here for schedule conflicts, they think that I just live in a basement and I'm like a caged up lion. You just throw me a chunk of raw meat from the refrigerator and you go, here's your dinner for the day, and so quit your crying, and then you just see me 24 hours later to feed me again. What do you have to say for yourself now that we have fans on different continents thinking that I am a caged up animal?
I'll just say one thing before you get to the actual nitty gritty details of what it is you're doing when you're not here. Um, it's not a piece of meat. We have Garrett. There is a great gentleman, like you said, a loyal listener. There is an individual in a different country, a whole ocean away, that thinks that you dwell in a basement. And and yeah, he doesn't think that we throw a piece of meat down there for you. It's actually a Walmart delivered pizza.
Yeah,
So that's all I really have to say. But why don't you inform them on what, you don't got to get into the nitty gritty, I guess. But just like, he's not in a basement. I've perpetuated that. And what's actually hilarious is the basement that Robbie actually insinuated where you are dwelling in these times of your absence was actually perpetuated from the Pittsburgh toilet rants that we'd had, where I
oh
didn't know what a
yeah,
Pittsburgh
yeah.
toilet is. And I think maybe I did start it in saying he's in the basement because I'm saying you're on the John in the Pittsburgh toilet, laying a moose, and maybe get locked down there in an accident. And then Robbie was like, oh yeah, he's in the basement. So that's actually where it stemmed from, I do believe.
That's right. I remember we did have those discussions earlier about the Pittsburgh toilet. I've lived here all my life, and I still think a Pittsburgh toilet's one of the most fascinating pieces of architecture you could put inside a house. I mean, you don't see it much anymore. All these houses where I live are, they're from like the 1900s, and around that time, a lot of the houses are anyway. So that's when the Pittsburgh toilet kind of came into being, when all the steel mills were hopping off around where I live. But it's funny. It's also plain ridiculous that a conversation about a Pittsburgh toilet transformed into me being locked up in a basement, and then that took on its own life of me being locked up in a basement and treated like a caged up animal to where we are right here, right now. It's kind of crazy how that journey has that the ride that we've been on from point A to point B to point C.
It is hilarious. I love it's like the game of telephone. It's just evolved into something that it never even should have been. You missed a couple episodes, and now there is a wonderful gentleman in the town in I believe I can't remember if Kim was from Denmark or not, but he thinks that you're eating pizza in a basement.
Yeah, yeah. Kim is from, I believe, Denmark, and we have our English listeners too. Tony Gale, Andreas Castle from Germany, Edward Beckham from England. All these people from the other side of the world, from where you and I live. Well, Snail, you live on the complete other opposite end of the country from where I live, but we'll put a bow on this conversation by saying, for the time being, I have made it out of the basement. I'm not getting a Walmart delivery. I am being properly fed. Being given my nutrients, my vitamins. I'm building up my muscle mass. I'm not being held prisoner until the next time I'm being held prisoner by Robbie and Snail, and then you'll know when I'm not here the next time. That's exactly where I am. But uh, I am healthy. I'm out of the basement for the time being until I mess up and do something naughty, and then I end up back in the basement.
Or maybe you'll be down there working on the one timer when your parents
That's
got
right.
a dryer with a wooden stick.
Well, Snail, is that the exclamation point you want to leave on the podcast? Just
Yeah,
beating up dryers with wooden sticks and wiffle balls and whatnot.
that's correct. When's the next mailbag dropping?
Let's see. What's today? Oh yeah, that's another thing too. I wanted to mention. I know earlier in the week when I submitted the mailbag tweet, we had like 35 something responses, and not all of those responses were answered in this week's episode. So a lot of those responses you will hear next week. Next week we will be back on a regular schedule. I believe we will be recording today's February 2nd. We will reconvene like we always do on Monday the 5th, and the part one of next week's mailbag will come out on February 6th. And next week, assuming everyone's schedules line up, we will reconvene February 8th, and we will put, like we have regularly, we'll put out part two on Friday, a week from today.
Sounds good. Thank
Alrighty.
you for the 35. Like, dude, it's awesome the questions, the amount of questions we
Oh,
get.
isn't it crazy?
It
Like
is.
when we started, we had like 5 to 8 questions, and it's morphed into like 35, 40, 50 questions at some point. So
And
yeah,
it
if
just
you,
produces riveting conversation.
oh yeah, this is not a hockey podcast anymore. This is a podcast talking about the ins and outs of what did we talk about today? Wooden sticks, dogs and cats when we were young. We're running the gamut here in terms of content.
This is a lifestyle podcast.
Exactly. We're the Skating Penguin Network. Yes, the core tenet is the Pittsburgh Penguins, but hey, they've been on a bye week for the last week, so we have to spruce things up every now and again and talk about some lifestyle things.
That's right, and we all enjoy it. All we get to know each other a little bit more color and depth added to these characters that you're either looking or listening to.
Exactly. Well, that'll wrap it up. That'll put a bow on this podcast for Snail. I have been Garrett Bahana. Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Skating Penguin Network Mailbag, and we will talk to all of you again very soon.